Before evil existed, long before humankind set foot on earth, the heavens were filled with goodness. Everything was perfect. Each angel shone with a bright light and lived in awe and love for the Creator of all things. There was no pain, no division, only peace and harmony. But among all the angels, there was one who stood out above the rest. Lucifer. He was called the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and beauty. He was the most intelligent, the most powerful, and the most respected in the heavens. All the angels admired him. He was the most beautiful creation God had ever made. Lucifer was the first being formed by the Creator's hands. He was God's masterpiece. He was given power and authority unlike any other angel. His intelligence was so great that only God was above him. However, not everything about him remained perfect. For a long time, he was blameless. But one day, evil was born within his heart, and the once most beautiful creation became the source of all suffering. Lucifer became the prince of darkness, the enemy of souls, the lord of destruction. From then on, he was called Satan. His fall left an eternal mark on heaven. The light continued to shine, but never quite the same. It was like a broken mirror. It still reflects, but never as before. Heaven would always remember the betrayal. Lucifer's story serves as a warning to us all. Even the brightest star can fall into darkness. But how did this happen? What led him to change? Why did what was once perfect become the source of evil? Before the tragedy, heaven functioned in perfect order. Each angel had his mission and knew what to do. Lucifer was anointed as a guardian cherub and walked on God's sacred mountain, among fiery stones, surrounded by the Creator's glory. At the highest level were the seraphim. They were like living flames, full of love and purity, and sang ceaselessly, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord." Below them were the cherubim, who guarded divine wisdom and protected God's secrets. They allowed no shadow of evil to approach. Closer to earth were the archangels, such as Michael and Gabriel. They appeared at important moments, bringing messages from God and fighting like celestial warriors. Last came the angels, who remained close to humanity. They are our guardians, accompanying people and protecting them from evil. It was in this perfect setting that God created Lucifer, the morning star. He was not only handsome but also charismatic and admired. He had a presence that drew everyone around him. His voice and words inspired respect. Even Michael, the great warrior, recognized his wisdom. Lucifer was also responsible for leading the praises of heaven. He organized the choirs and led the songs of worship to the Creator. His voice seemed like a flame illuminating the other angels. But little by little, pride began to grow in his heart. The radiance God had given him began to become a source of vanity. Instead of using it to glorify God, he became enamored with himself. The Bible shows how his downfall began. His heart became filled with pride because of his beauty, and his wisdom was corrupted by his own splendor. What was once a gift became ruin. The beauty everyone admired became his destruction. The wisdom that once inspired others became a weapon against himself. Pride took over his mind. He wanted to place himself above his Creator. In his heart, he said, "I will ascend to heaven and set my throne above the stars of God." It was at that moment that the heavens shook. Rebellion began. Peace shattered like fragile glass. Jesus himself witnessed this event, saying, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." In an instant, Lucifer was cast into the abyss. He lost the light that surrounded him. His glory faded, and the morning star was extinguished forever. But why did this happen? If he was so important, why did he fall? The truth is, the Bible says little about Lucifer. He appears in fragments, in symbolic passages. Therefore, to better understand, we also use other sources, such as the book History of the Angelic World by Father Antonio Fortier and the writings of St. Augustine. Augustine explained that Lucifer represents the pride of someone who wanted to be equal to the Creator. Blinded by his own light, he tried to take God's place and was expelled, leaving an eternal lesson. At first, the evil in him seemed like a small, almost imperceptible thought, a fleeting thought. What if my light could shine brighter? What if my glory didn't always have to serve another? These small doubts grew into seeds and soon took root in his mind. He began to imagine himself sitting on the supreme throne, being worshipped by others. Each mission he accomplished only fueled that inner voice that said, "You deserve more." While heaven remained in order, Lucifer became distant. The angels noticed his change. Gabriel noticed and asked, "Brother Lucifer, what weighs on your heart? Your light seems troubled." And Lucifer replied, "There are things even we cannot understand, dear Gabriel." Gabriel became uneasy, for he sensed something was not right. Over time, Lucifer began to neglect his responsibilities. His voice, which once led the heavenly choir, fell silent. His absence was felt as if a star had disappeared from the heavens. In worship services, he no longer participated with the same passion, but with pride and resentment. Heaven had rules, but no chains. God gave each angel freedom. The freedom to choose to love and serve. It was this same freedom that allowed Lucifer to choose to walk away. Some angels, enchanted by his strength and beauty, began to follow him, believing he could lead them to something greater. A cherub even asked, "Don't you find joy in singing anymore?" And Lucifer replied with a cold smile, "I have other interests. Perhaps there is something beyond what we know." It was at that moment that the rebellion truly ignited. He declared, "I will ascend above the clouds. I will be like the Most High." His brilliance was no longer for worshiping God, but for fueling his own ambition. Paradise, so perfect, trembled for the first time. The name Light-Bearer made sense. He truly illuminated others and convinced them with his words. He didn't deceive with cheap lies, but with his charisma and passion. Many followed him, believing he could offer a new direction. Even so, God did not fail to warn him. He called him and said, "Lucifer, my son, seal of perfection, I sense your thoughts straying from me. Remember, the light you carry comes from me, not from you." Lucifer replied, "Father, wasn't it to seek understanding that you created me? I only want to better understand your work. Is that wrong?" God's heart was saddened. He knew that even in the purest of beings, pride could be born. He said once more, "If you return to me, your radiance will grow in truth. Together, we will be greater than any single thought." But Lucifer refused. His pride got the better of him. Days passed, and his mind was consumed with ambition. He no longer contemplated God with devotion. The angels still respected him. His voice still led their songs, but within him, love was already divided. Again, God called to him, "Lucifer, I see the path you are taking. Your light is turning into darkness. There is still time. Return, and love will be reborn within you." But this time, Lucifer wouldn't listen. His heart hardened, and he sought only his own glory. In his mind, he justified his pride. And God, in his infinite patience, let him go, for he had already offered all the love and mercy possible. "I will not turn away from you," God said in his final warning, "but you are free to choose." He was still offering Lucifer one more chance. God's heart was filled with sadness, a deep pain, because he knew he was about to lose his most beautiful creation. Yet he thought, "Even if you fall, I will still love you." As Lucifer walked away, all of heaven fell silent, waiting for what would come next. God, patiently, did not reveal everything immediately. He wanted to give Lucifer time to reflect and strengthen his loyalty. In a loving voice, he said, "My son, a great revelation is coming. It will be like a storm, shaking your heart. Therefore, prepare yourself, root yourself in obedience, for the test will be great." Lucifer listened attentively. He knelt before God and said, "Father, I want to obey. I can't promise to be perfect, but I want to be faithful. My heart still burns with love for you." His words were sincere, but within him the seed of pride continued to grow. He thought, "Am I not the most special among all the angels? Am I not the one who shines the brightest?" God patiently postponed the day of revelation again. He wanted to give him more time to seek humility. But temptation grew in Lucifer, just as it had in Eden. when the serpent said to Eve, "You will be like God." This same desire took hold within him, to be more than he was, to not depend completely on the Creator. Pride became a shadow in heaven. Perfection was shaken, and peace ceased to exist. God then decided it was time to reveal his plan before all the angels. In a great assembly, the firmament shone, and he said, "I will create a material universe where life will flourish. And in this world called Earth, I will create beings in my image. They will be human, made of body and spirit. And what's more, I myself will become flesh. My Son, Jesus Christ, will be born as a man. And in this humanity, you will worship me." The angels were amazed. Many were filled with joy, praising God for such great love. But Lucifer remained silent. Something within him broke. He would not accept kneeling before a god in human form. He found it humiliating. He asked, "Why must perfection lower itself? Why must I, made of light, worship mortal flesh?" His heart filled with bitterness. He thought, "Why not me? I'm the most beautiful, the closest to the throne, the most worthy. Why wasn't I chosen?" This feeling turned to hatred.
When all the angels knelt, Lucifer remained standing. His gaze was steady and cold. Then he said softly, "No." The silence was broken. He repeated louder, "No." Everyone was astonished. How could the most glorious angel dare defy the Creator himself? Lucifer then turned to the others and said, "Don't you see? This is a mistake. God asks us to worship mortal flesh. This is not an honor, it is a humiliation." His words were full of persuasion and began to plant doubts in the hearts of some angels. Thus began the rebellion that would forever change the history of heaven. The angels listened intently to Lucifer's every word. His voice was like a powerful whisper, full of persuasion and beauty, penetrating deep into the hearts of the heavenly beings. He spoke with such logic and confidence that his ideas seemed impossible to refute. His words fell like a gentle poison, numbing truth and causing doubt to grow. "Is it right that we bow before a human form? Before something so fragile and limited?" he asked, casting thoughts that many would not dare to say aloud, but which were already beginning to take shape in the minds of several angels. As he spoke, Lucifer radiated charisma. His speech had strength, authority, and beauty. It was impossible not to listen to him. Each sentence rang with wisdom mixed with challenge. And then, at the height of his speech, something unexpected happened. A voice broke through the heavens with the force of thunder. "Who is like God?" These words echoed with such intensity that they shook the entire celestial assembly. It was Michael, the little archangel, considered simple among the others, but who shone with unparalleled purity. In just 3 words, Michael answered all of Lucifer's arguments, reminding him that no one could ever compare to the Creator. The angels shuddered. That simple sentence rekindled their memory of who they were, where they came from, and to whom they belonged. Lucifer, surprised and furious, turned to Michael with an icy, angry gaze. Never before had anyone dared to defy him so openly. Michael, though smaller in appearance, stepped forward courageously. "You are arrogant," he said firmly. His words, though calm, carried the weight of lightning. "You have become a shadow, Lucifer, trying to extinguish the Creator's brilliance. Can't you see that you have placed yourself above God?" These words were like a sword to Lucifer's heart. He felt exposed before everyone. His pride and ambition were exposed, and it wounded him deeply. A mixture of anger and shame filled his being. "You don't understand anything," Lucifer replied, trying to maintain his composure. "Don't you realize that what they ask of us is humiliation? I, who is the first in glory, cannot kneel before something so inferior." His voice seemed firm, but it was filled with resentment and bitterness. Michael remained serene, but his words carried the force of 1,000 storms. "You don't understand love, Lucifer? It's not about humiliation, but about love. God became flesh for us, and you reject him because you can't bear to be lesser. You've forgotten your place. All that you are is but a reflection of his glory. It's not God who lowers himself, but your pride that elevates you beyond who you truly are." These words were like a mirror held before Lucifer. For the first time, he saw himself not as the most beautiful angel, but as a shadow filled with resentment. The sight was unbearable. He walked away silently, trying to maintain a veneer of grandeur, but inside he burned with hatred. Alone he wept. Ow! But not out of regret. His tears were of anger and wounded pride. How dare Miguel face me? How dare such a small being challenge the most brilliant of them all? He thought amidst his fury. And yet deep down he knew Miguel was right. This truth was his greatest torment. It was then that Lucifer began to spread his rebellion. Whispers, he said, God demands the impossible of us. He wants us to renounce who we are, to kneel before a lesser form. Why, made of light, should we worship something made of clay? Light. Why should we venerate a crucified God, bloodied and broken by pain? These words caused many angels to hesitate. Doubt grew. What if God isn't really God? What if he's just a more powerful angel, similar to Lucifer, but greater? The seed of rebellion had been planted. Lucifer knew how to win hearts. He didn't speak of hate or preach violence. He spoke of dignity, freedom, and independence. He promised a heaven where no angel would need to bow to another, where each could shine on their own. God gave us free will, he said. So why not use it? Why not be who we really are? Gradually, his army grew. It wasn't the lesser angels who followed him, but the most beautiful, wise, and strong. Those in whom God had placed great power and glory. One by one, Lucifer chose them, until he formed a group of resplendent warriors who now exchanged their light for darkness. Before them, he proclaimed with a firm voice, "We are the future. We are the light that does not bend. If God does not give us the place we deserve, we will take it ourselves." His words set hearts ablaze. What was once loyalty now turned into pride and ambition. What was once freedom now became an invisible chain. The sky, once filled with harmony and peace, now trembled with the weight of war. And again Michael stood up. Sword in hand, he cried out in a firm voice, "Who is like God?" This simple phrase rekindled the flame of faith in many. Michael, humble and courageous, was willing to face the entire rebel army alone if necessary. He knew that Lucifer had many powerful angels at his side, but this did not intimidate him. His faith was his shield, his loyalty his weapon. Then the heavens shook. The first war of creation began, light versus darkness. The little archangel versus the morning star. Each blow echoed like thunder. Each clash tore open eternity. And the entire universe held its breath before the battle that would forever change the history of creation. Michael, the little archangel, stood up with courage and firmness, full of humility and unshakable faith. The sky, once a place of perfect peace and harmony, became a vast battlefield. There began the greatest war of all, light against darkness, obedience against rebellion. What was once song and joy became the sound of thunder and flashes of fire. The armies met with tremendous force, like giant waves crashing together. Each time the swords of light crossed, the entire sky glowed as if thousands of shooting stars fell at once. It was a spectacle of power and glory, but also of pain, as creation witnessed the defiance of God himself. The fallen angels, once the most beautiful and brilliant, now fought filled with pride and rage. They seemed to fight tirelessly, but their strength came only from arrogance. The angels who remained faithful fought with calm and confidence. They sought no glory for themselves, but fought out of love and loyalty to their Creator. Among them, Michael, who was not even considered the most powerful, placed himself before his brothers. He trusted not in titles or honors, but in the strength of God, and he cried out with all his soul, "Who is like God?" This cry echoed throughout the universe, showing that victory lay not in the greatest, but in the faithful. His strength came from the certainty that truth and light were with him, and this made his courage multiply. The loyal angels sensed they were not alone. God's power surrounded them like an invisible shield, giving them even greater security and courage. Lucifer, however, filled with hatred, advanced on Michael. He spread his black wings and cast a terrifying shadow, seemingly swallowing the light. Then he cried out, "I was the first. I am the true light." But his words were empty. They were only a sad echo of what he had once been. His light had turned into distorted darkness. Even though his power was great, it could not extinguish the flame of truth that Michael carried. The war was fierce. The heavens trembled as if feeling the pain of betrayal. The angels who weren't fighting watched with tears in their eyes, watching the order of heaven shatter. The peace that had always existed seemed to be fading, but amidst the chaos, there was still hope. The faithful angels showed with every blow they struck, with every step they took, that their love for God was greater than any fear. Finally, the decisive moment arrived. Michael raised his gleaming sword and declared in a loud voice, "By the power of God, fall, Lucifer," and so it happened. The heavens filled with light, the darkness was shattered, and the rebellion began to crumble. The angels who had followed Lucifer, about a third of the heavenly host, were cast out, hurled down like stars falling from the sky. Lucifer lost his glory and became Satan, the enemy of God. Heaven fell into a profound silence. It was a silence filled with pain, for that war had left scars that time and love would heal. The faithful angels were exhausted, but they knew they had won. Light triumphed over darkness, and the virtues that come from God, truth, faith, and hope remained standing. Heaven never forgot this eternal truth. Good always conquers evil, not through violence nor brute force, but because goodness is the essence of God himself. Pride, hatred, and envy may fight, but they are like fleeting shadows before the purity of love. The battle is over, and even wounded, heaven is at peace again. Michael's words, "Who is like God?" were etched for all eternity, a reminder that nothing can be greater than the glory of God. Then the heavens opened, and the rebels were cast out once and for all. Lucifer, once the morning star, along with all who followed him, were cast away from the light and cast into an abyss of darkness. The entire sky seemed to tremble in that instant. Those who had been the most beautiful and powerful angels fell like meteors, condemned to live in a dark place, full of disorder and chaos, far from the divine presence. Lucifer, now called Satan, felt the weight of this fall like a red-hot iron searing his soul. Complete separation from God was the most terrible pain he could ever experience. The place he was cast into was not yet the ultimate hell, but a state of confusion, isolation, and estrangement from God. It was like a shattered dream, distorted reflection of heaven, a hopeless shadow. Even so, Satan did not give up on evil. In his rage and pride, he decided that if he could no longer have heaven, he would destroy everything that reminded him of God's glory. It was at this point that he turned his eyes to the creation God had planned: humanity. A perverse idea arose in Satan's mind. If he could not reign in heaven, he would corrupt humanity, God's most precious work. The thought of dragging humanity created in the Creator's image into darkness gave him bitter pleasure. For him, human beings had taken the place he believed was his before the divine throne. Therefore, the love and goodness that existed in humanity became the target of his hatred. His mission became clear. If he and his fallen angels couldn't stand before God, neither should humans. Satan's resentment and envy became an obsession to sabotage creation and corrupt the purity of what God had made. The expulsion of Lucifer and the angels who followed him changed history forever. From that moment on, evil ceased to be merely the absence of good and became an organized, active, and dangerous force. Demons, led by Satan, began to operate in the world, trying to lead mankind astray with pride, envy, lies, and despair, the very feelings that led to their downfall. But even in this judgment, God's love and justice appeared together. The expulsion was not just punishment, it was perfect justice. Those who chose rebellion could no longer live before God's light. God's love has always existed, but his justice demands balance. Those who rejected the light could no longer enjoy it. In this act, God demonstrated to the universe the perfect union between his love and his justice. Justice demanded separation, but love still allowed the fallen to continue existing, even in darkness. Thus, heaven and earth learned forever that good, grounded in God's love, can never be defeated. The story of Lucifer, who later became Satan, doesn't end with his expulsion from heaven. This event was only the beginning of a struggle that continues to this day, the battle between good and evil. Even though he was initially defeated, Satan never gave up his hatred and his desire to deceive and corrupt humanity. He acts in every temptation, in every spiritual difficulty we face. The enemy tries to enter people's hearts, exploiting our freedom and our quest for greatness. But evil has limits, because the good that comes from God is always stronger and always has the final word. What began in heaven continues on earth within every human being. Satan and his demons try to extinguish the light of souls, but God's grace, justice, and love never disappear. They remind us that even when evil seems great and frightening, good always wins. Lucifer's fall marked the beginning of an endless conflict, a struggle that shows that, in the end, God's goodness, light, and love are invincible in heaven and here on earth. To this day, the question posed by Michael the Archangel still echoes. Who is like God? Says his expulsion. Satan has pursued a clear objective, to destroy and corrupt what God created. The Bible presents numerous instances in which he appears as a tempter, tempting not only ordinary people, but also men of faith, and even the Son of God himself. One of the most striking episodes in the New Testament is the temptation of Jesus in the desert. After 40 days and 40 nights of fasting, Satan took advantage of Jesus' hunger and frailty and tried to deceive him. First, he suggested that he turn stones into bread. Then, he took him to the highest point of the temple and told him to throw himself down so that the angels would save him in front of everyone. And finally, he offered all the kingdoms of the world in exchange for worship. This final gesture revealed his true objective, to steal the glory that belongs only to God. Jesus responded to each temptation with firmness. He quoted scripture and made it clear that only God deserves glory and worship. This episode was not just a confrontation, but an example for us all. It shows that faith, obedience, and trust in God can overcome even the greatest temptations. Jesus teaches that true power lies not in riches or miracles, but in living in love and obedience to the Creator. Another important moment is the story of Job. Satan appeared before God and said that Job was only faithful because he had received blessings. He insinuated that if Job lost everything, he would abandon his faith. This accusation was more than an attack on a righteous man. It was an attempt to say that no one truly loves God except out of self-interest. Satan was then given permission to test Job. He lost his possessions, his children, and his health. He suffered as few have. But even amidst pain and doubt, Job did not abandon God. His faith showed that true love does not depend on rewards. It is a trust that remains steadfast even in the face of suffering. Satan failed once again, and Job's resistance became an eternal testament to his faith. Even before that, at the beginning of human history, Satan was at work in the Garden of Eden. God had created that perfect place for Adam and Eve. But Lucifer saw an opportunity to deceive, disguised as a serpent. He approached Eve and raised the question, did God really say that you must not eat from any tree in the garden? With a simple question, he sowed distrust. He didn't use force, but words. He promised, you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. This promise touched human pride and desire. Even Adam, attracted by the idea of being like God, ate the forbidden fruit. This choice opened the doors of sin to all humanity. With just one temptation, Satan managed to bring heavenly rebellion into the human heart. Since then, his presence has been felt in every doubt, in every temptation. The same deception that occurred in Eden repeats itself in different forms in each person's life. But biblical stories remind us of something fundamental. No matter how great the evil, good will always have the last word. In the book of Revelation, we see Satan's final fate. This prophecy portrays him as the great dragon, the ultimate enemy of God and humanity, determined to destroy every last vestige of goodness. The Apostle John had a vision of the end times, when evil reaches its peak and the battle between light and darkness becomes more intense than ever. Satan appears as the ancient serpent, the devil who deceives the whole world. He who was once the morning star is now portrayed as a terrifying dragon, a symbol of destructive power and deception. The same one who led Adam and Eve to sin in Eden will, at the end of time, attempt to destroy all that remains of good. Revelation describes this time as a period of tribulation, marked by disasters and trials. Humanity will be divided. Some will choose to remain faithful to God, while others will succumb to the enemy's temptations. During this phase, Satan will present himself as the great deceiver, trying to separate people from God by any means necessary. He will be called the accuser of the brethren, always trying to bring down the faithful, sowing doubt and despair. John's vision also depicts the final battle, when Satan and his armies will confront Michael and God's angels. This battle is a continuation of the war that began in heaven when Lucifer was cast out. Furthermore, Revelation reveals that Satan will be behind the beast and the false prophet, who will deceive many people. Through them, he will attempt to create a false kingdom, distorted copy of God's kingdom, seeking the worship he has always desired. But the end of this story is already written. After the great battle and tribulation, Satan will be defeated once and for all. He will be cast into the lake of fire and sulfur, a place of eternal punishment. There he will lose all power and will no longer be able to deceive or harm anyone. His rebellion will be over, and God's victory will be complete. This outcome shows more than Satan's defeat. It confirms that God has dominion over all creation. Satan, who sought to be greater than the Creator, ends up as a symbol of failure, of a rebellion he could never overcome. For us, this message is a powerful hope. It reminds us that even if evil seems strong for a time, it is fleeting. Good is eternal, because it comes from God Himself. God's victory does not come through force alone, but because He is truth, justice, and love. The final battle described in Revelation is a promise of restoration and redemption for all who choose light over darkness. To this day, this prophecy encourages us to resist. Satan still tempts, still deceives, but his fate is already decided: defeat. The story of his fall and ultimate condemnation strengthens our faith and reminds us that good always wins. Faith, hope, and perseverance are the weapons that bring us closer to God and keep us steadfast until the end. Victory already belongs to the Lord, and God's light will shine forever. If you're curious and want to understand even more, don't miss the study of the 5 prophecies of Revelation. They reveal Lucifer's final destiny and explain his role in humanity's final events. These prophecies reveal Satan's final act before his defeat. You'll see how his rebellion not only marked his fate, but also ties into the future of humanity and the ultimate victory of divine justice. This is a story that began with the fall of a powerful angel and ends with the Creator's victory. Click on the video below and discover this stunning conclusion. You won't want to miss it.